coach, but he was an offense coordinator for 5 years at Portland State prior to that for Nigel Burton. So he knows all about football in the Northwest and how good this Washington program is. When you and I talked to him, he said they're one of the best teams in the country already. Is that just hype? Was he getting his guys fired up?
No, it's true. I mean, you just look across the country and the quote-unquote top-ranked teams, when they played teams that they should beat, they all haven't played well. UW has taken care of their business. They've totally bought into Chris Peterson. They got some elements they got to work on, we'll talk about, but they're worthy of that ranking.
Vizcaino's kicked it in 3 different spots. This time he puts it in the end zone. Nate Tongo going to take a knee. Let's go down to Cindy on the sideline.
Chico McClatcher making a really close distance from home. He went to high school in Federal Way, Washington, and that's just a few minutes down I-5. He came through and thanked all of his offensive teammates on catching that beautiful fade pass from Browning. An offensive line coach, Strasser, complimenting every one of his big guys up front, saying every hole you make leads us to the end zone. So far, so great for this dog offense.
No doubt, Cindy. And his mom, Cam Warner, she ran track here at UW. Top 10 in the long jump, 60-meter hurdles. He got a speed from mom, that's for sure.
And he was second in state in the long jump down at Federal Way. Like, one thing I noticed, and I lived up here for a few years, if your parents went to UW, that's your first choice. You're raised that way.
Well, I'll tell you what, this staff has done a nice job of keeping big-time players in state. That's always been a thing here at UW, just because so many schools come to this state, especially the Los Angeles schools in the Pac-10, Pac-12 conference. Done a nice job the last 2 years in their recruiting classes, getting some talented players like Chico McClatcher to stay close to home.
I remember when they landed Jake Locker coming down from Bellingham.
It's huge.
People couldn't wait for him to get here. Early in the second quarter, knocked away, incomplete. Travis Bartlett got his hands up. Yeah, I was wondering if that pass was backwards.
You'll see at the top of your screen. There's Tevis Bartlett.
That's a backwards pass, isn't it?
No doubt. And they're talking about it. Keep in mind, after last year, they show replays.
The ruling on the field is a backward pass recovered by the defense.
It is? Yeah.
First down.
Well, it didn't look like they called it that way the first time, but they get it right. It's the correct call. Look at the quarterback's feet. Look where the ball goes.
Yeah. Nice job by Tevis Bartlett, young guy, sophomore. He's a quarterback in high school. Knows a little bit about where the quarterback's going to throw the rock, makes a play. Everybody getting involved. The sideline erupts. And Chris Coit and the officiating crew get it right.
Bartlett played in all 13 last year. Played a pretty good game against Idaho at 4 tackles. Peterson was right on it. He was calling it a fumble immediately. And here they come again. First and goal at the 4-yard line. And already up 21-0. Full house backfield. Browning keeps it. Pressure coming. Extends the play and throws it away. Chris Peterson said this is a guy, and this is how you can tell good quarterbacks from great quarterbacks. They buy time without leaving the pocket. And this is a guy who does it. And he still does it with discipline. There, he could have gone rabbit and run around the corner, but he stayed inside the tackles.
Yeah, he's smart. In the red zone, no picks, no turnovers, no poor decisions, no sacks. Get rid of the football.
Gaskin. No problem. Bounced off one guy and walked into the end zone. Washington is on the board for the 4th time. Myles Gaskin, 8 carries, 28 yards. He came in just about 125 yards on the season. I think Washington's going to try to rush for 200 yards today. That's been a pretty good number for them over the years. In fact, they're 83-16 when rushing for 200 yards all time. And Jake Browning has looked pretty good. He's already thrown a number of touchdowns today, still has avoided interceptions. He's checked out of a couple of runs. As ball goes through the back of the end zone. Let's go to San Francisco. Mike Yammon, an update.
All right, Jim, time for a Valvoline game break. I've heard a rumor that Christian McCaffrey is fairly talented, and he's even better when no one's covering him. McCaffrey scampering into the end zone, puts the Cardinal up 7-0. Right now, though, is a 7-3 count, guys.
Christian McCaffrey last year, 461 all-purpose yards against SC. They rolled SC twice last year, put 41 on the board both times.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast, a consummate teammate, and some interesting games going on all across the country.
Bama got pushed today. Top 3 all against ranked teams on the road. Nate Tongo, first carry for Portland State. Got to be shell-shocked. The Vikings, an FCS team, getting on the bus and coming north to take on a powerful UW team. And so far, getting knocked around. The turnover didn't help. Caressa just hasn't been on the field enough to be effective. And one drive into UW territory looked pretty good, but a big loss on the sack on third down scuttled it. Goes underneath to Paris Penn. Team's second leading receiver and their leading rusher. JoJo McIntosh on the coverage for Washington. Remember that this defense for UW, #1 in the conference last year, only allowed 19 points a game. Penn's going to stay in, go back to the Wildcat. We saw this once before, he kept it himself. This time he hands off.
That defensive front is ridiculously stout. We were talking Elijah Qualls, running back in high school. Greg Gaines, a running back in high school. And Vita Vea, probably the biggest NFL prospect at 6'5", over 330. I mean, those 3 guys, when they find their groove, that interior defensive line is as good as any interior D-line in the conference.
They can eat up a lot of guys. 3 300-pounders. And Vita Vea is the fastest, or should we say quickest, I guess, up front.
Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal. Marcus Kinsella to punt for Portland State. Dante Pettis watches it roll out of bounds just across the 30. You come to Seattle, you got to walk down Pine Street. Spend some time inside the public market. Elliott Bay in the background. Pac-12 football is brought to you by Barbasol, America's leader for a close, comfortable shave. Now with rust-proof aluminum bottoms. And by 76, we're on the driver's side. World-famous Space Needle looking across Lake Union. And in the background, that big gray building, Husky Stadium. Been here since 1920, but they remodeled it 3 years ago. They're 17-7 since the remodel. And they're off to a good start today. 28-0 over Portland State. There goes Miles Gaskin. Gaskin, another first down for Washington.
Check out the center, Coleman Shelton. Pulls again. You don't see this very often. Really athletic. Great hands, keeping him inside. Gives Gaskin a sliver to crease through. Away he goes.
You know, Coleman Shelton's amazing because he started at one point in his career at every position on the offensive line here at Washington. So if you get confused, just look over at 79 and say, is this where I'm supposed to be? What's my assignment? Browning going to extend this play. Gets his feet set again and throws in and out of the hands of his receiver.
You don't see
Buda
that
Baker on the offensive side. You came to me right before the game and said, I think we're going to see Buda Baker on offense. Why?
Well, he's such a dynamic athlete. You know, it's something they tried to sprinkle in last year. Only got 1 carry this year, and he's smiling, saying, you know, that type of guy, he's politicking, right? Coach, put me on offense. Hey, man, you got your shot. That was a drop. Got to make those plays, but he's as dynamic of an athlete as anybody in the country.
Plays in the defensive backfield for Washington and dominates there. There's Fuller, quick catch, but he's dropped immediately at the 47-yard line. Artez Manning on the coverage. They've been working him throughout the first half. Let's go down to Cindy.
Well, with the wind swirling throughout the stadium and affecting the flag on the lake side of the end zone, it's easy to understand why the Huskies have been relying on the ground game today, averaging nearly 7 yards a carry so far this half.
Yeah, they only averaged about 109 yards through the first 2 games. But, of course, they wanted to establish Browning and this great receiving core through the air. They've done that. Now it's time to go back to the ground. And Cindy's right. The weather's right for it. Well overthrown. Baker once again snuck back onto the field.
Well, I love the call. I mean, it's man-to-man coverage. He's in the slot, and he kind of bangs the safety, and they collide. And when you don't play wide out enough, you know, you got to kind of dip him. You got to make him move a little bit. He's usually that safety creating that type of collision.
But if Baker appears in the huddle all of a sudden and Browning sees him, Browning's going to feel like he's going to have to give him the ball, right? So if I'm defending that, I know when 32 is on, they're going to try to get it to him.
No doubt.
It's a little predictable. Washington to punt. Goes into the end zone. That'll be a touchback. Portland State ball on the 20. Cascano boots it into the end zone. Buddha's still grinning.
See this type of formation, it's really hard on a defense because you don't want to get outnumbered. If you get outnumbered, you can overrun a run, and that could be big play potential for the offense.
First down just across the 30. Still 9 minutes to play in the half. Caressa got away from the first guy and maybe going to lose a yard as he got back near the line of scrimmage.
They just have waves and waves on this defense, right? They get there with the pressure coming from the top of your screen. Then Vita Vea gets in the mix a little bit at the end. Brandon Beaver. But
got a taste, didn't he?
Yeah, they have depth, you know, and they understand formations. They understand splits. They understand concepts, really, from the defensive line all the way to the back end. Something you don't always see everyone with the same type of comprehension.
Vita Vea, 3 tackles and at least a sack in each of the first 2 games. Caressa, good protection. Lobs one into coverage. Flag comes out, and it's intercepted. Kevin King with the theft, but there's going to be some interference here.
Yeah, going up against Chris Cisse, that's going to be pass interference on the defense. It's been a fun matchup to watch all afternoon long.
Pass interference, defense number 20, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
There's a skill in creating pass interference and getting an interception on the same play, isn't there?
Yeah, no doubt.
You're pretty busy.
It's incredibly athletic, but you can't extend the arm. And you just kind of think it's incidental contact. A lot of times DBs, they don't think they did it. Every DB I've ever met never had one personal foul or pass interference their entire career. But those are the things they're going to get called. And
Pete Kwiatkowski, the defense coordinator for Washington, was with Peterson at Boise State for all those years. They came together. In fact, Peterson brought about 6 guys with him. Paris Penn short game. You know, it was funny when we were talking with Peterson earlier this week. You know, we asked him. It was all going right at Boise. Went to bowl games, went to 10 games almost every single year there. So the tendency, the temptation would be bring those guys here and try to recreate it. But Chris pointed out to us, hey, Seattle's not Boise. It's a different program. And so I wasn't sure if that was the right move, but he's comfortable with those guys, and it looks like he made the right decision. 2nd and 8. Nate Tongo is the deep guy behind Caressa. Caressa soft roll to his right on the hash mark. Pressure coming. Joe Mathis.
take a look at JoJo Mathis, this defensive end here at the bottom. He's just going to keep coming, fighting, and all of a sudden he's going to get the sack. And this is a young man who's been persevering his entire life. You saw the drive last night, premiere on the Pac-12 Network. Talk about his fit, his fight, his grit, his ability to persevere. He's a young man who almost left the program when Chris Peterson came in with his new philosophy, different than Steve Sarkisian. He wasn't ready for it. He's matured, he's grown up, and he just made a big play on second down.
He's got a new baby. That'll make you grow up pretty quick. 3rd and 15. Caressa feeling the heat again. Qualls squeezes him out to the opposite side. He continues to retreat and finally just chucks it into his own bench. No chance.
How about Greg Gaines? Gets a little taste at the end. He just did a full-on sprint. In football, they talk about like 4-second sprints. Maybe 5. How many times can you go 4 or 5 seconds as hard as you want? That was about a 12-second play for the big man. Just keep going. High school running back. Oh, look that. But look at his feet. He's so athletic. And honestly, we always kind of laugh at the big guys, and he kind of looks like a rectangle almost. He's just kind of got that build, but he's really athletic. And both of those guys on the inside can get after it with incredible footwork.
Dante Pettis hasn't returned a punt yet. They're going to kick away from him. And Bruce Barnum coming in said, I'm not going to give it to any of these quick guys. Not giving it to Pettis, not giving it to Ross. Jake Browning's already thrown 3 touchdowns today, 11 on the season.
We love the first one off of an audible. Saw man-to-man coverage, got it to Chico McClatcher, a guy who got involved extremely early. John Ross gives him the old rub on the slant route. It opens it up. Then, of course, they bring in Buda Baker as the decoy. They hit Mr. Daniels on the tight end delay, backside for another touchdown. And then the perfect, it was a stop and go, a little spin move by number 6, making Mom happy. And all these fans in Husky Stadium fired up as Purple Rain is on its way back to Seattle.
McClatcher has 2. Darrell Daniels, a touchdown catch. Gaskin ran one in. Adds up to 28. Off the right side, short gain out to the 32. 6.5 to play in the first half. 3rd game of the season for Washington. They've all been at home. They put 48 on the board. Opening day against Rutgers. Backed it up with a 50-point game against Idaho, so they came in averaging 53.5 points per game. So the haters say, well, they haven't played anybody. Well, you can only play the team in front of you, and they're working some people. You can see Browning getting better on each series, confidence growing, and he could have 2 more full seasons in front of him.
Well, this offensive line, they're still trying to figure it out. Keep an eye right here, their right guard, true freshman Nick Harris. 2nd year in a row, his offensive line has played a true freshman. And this young man, starting at the University of Washington, or at least rotating in, they're trying to figure it out right guard. He was offered at New Hampshire and Cal Poly. I mean, this truly the development of this recruiting at Washington. They have to evaluate you on all levels, academic, athletically, and then they find their right fit. They're not worried about stars or anything like that. He's a great example.
Yeah, they were talking about how they were so impressed with him, and he was only 17. Darrell Daniels scored a touchdown earlier, another big catch, and yards after the catch as well.
So just be a defense, right? Be a defensive coordinator in the Pac-12. You're going to watch these 3 games. You look at all these weapons. Now you're seeing up-tempo, seeing a variety of different tempos. You see a tight end who can block, who can also catch. How do you match up personnel-wise? It gives them a big advantage on the offensive end.
Jake Browning, 8 for 15, 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. Gives it to Dotson that time, and nowhere to run.
Anthony McNichols
is their leading tackler, just shredding a jersey too.
Yeah, and he's a great story. He petitioned the NCAA for another year. He's been banged up the last 2 years, played 3 games in 2014, only 4 games last year. He's a fun guy to watch on film. One of the leaders in the heart of that defense. And how about that shirt right there? That's called getting after it.
18 tackles in the first 2 games. He had 10 tackles against Central Washington in their opener. They won that game and then got drilled at San Jose State. Levon Coleman has a fumble recovery and now a first down. Remember, he's the guy who pounced on it when Portland State spilled the kickoff. 4 minutes going up tempo here. Coleman stays in. Browning says, let's go now. Got it knocked away from behind and intercepted. Bartlett comes up with it. Kenton Bartlett is going to catch this ball out of the air.
Well, that's an incredible play. And that one's going to be on Darrell Daniels, the tight end. Got to hold up on the outside. You see at the top of your screen, he can't hold up. Browning's got a touchdown. He's going to John Ross.
That's Devon Dade behind. Yeah, got him.
And how about the awareness?
Dade, nice play. Dade had a blocked field goal against Central Washington, so he's a playmaker.
Yeah, and Bartlett, he's a true freshman. They got 2 true freshmen playing on this defensive line. He was a mid-year guy who was there in spring, but Kenton Bartlett, he's a guy who's going to play a lot of football out of Boise, Idaho. And Devon Day with a big play. Shows his explosiveness. He's really their edge rusher. First big play of the game for this defense of Portland State.
Portland State was a pretty good team last year. They won 9 games. And remember, FCS, it's different level, different games, so you might not be familiar with them. But yeah, this was a good football team. Went to the playoffs last year. And they're ranked 19th in the FCS. Bruce Barnum last year was the interim coach for about 8 months. Puts 9 victories on the board. Bam, new contract. Is that how it works?
Well, I'll tell you what, Barney Ball was trending all over.
He was the national coach of the year in the FCS as an interim. Portland State finally getting a little traction here. Caressa trying to straight arm at the 30. Can't run away from Qualls. Let's go down to Cindy.
Coach Barnum has a pretty sweet setup, guys. He has a +1, which means for every time he wins at least 7 games in a season, they just tack on a year to his current 5-year deal. So last year in the 9-win season, he earned an extra year, so he's working on a 6-year deal right now. And if they win 7 games this season, they'll tack on another year.
I like that idea. That just kind of keeps kicking that further down the road. You don't have to worry about it. No pressure on the administration. Coach can buy a house. Kids can go to school. Everybody's happy. 7 or more. Caressa, good protection. He's had time to throw today. Got his tight end downfield. Spethia makes his 2nd catch of the game.
Spethia, another great story. I mean, this is a transfer from Cal. They got 8 Pac-12 transfers on this roster. And this young guy, they weren't even sure if he was going to play in this game, Jim. He's a guy who had to make sure he was academically ready. They thought he might have to take an exam today, but the business school called and said, you know what, he's done enough. He did well enough in his first couple exams. He's okay. Can you let him go play the game? But they didn't know as of yesterday if he was going to make it. They tell him about a half an hour before the bus leaves that he can go play. And he's going to be a big playmaker in their conference throughout the season.
You and I both have the same reaction to that. There are classes on Saturdays. Cindy?
It was kind of funny, guys, because the entire coaching staff was really in the face of the administration saying, this guy is an A student, let's get our act together. And they had a backup plan. Assistant coach was going to hang back in Portland and drive him up. And as a result, Spethia almost missed the bus because he thought he was being driven up on his own. It became a bunch of musical chairs down there trying to get this guy up here.
That could be a 4-hour drive from Portland to Seattle, and that's without any traffic at all. And there's a lot going on in this city right now. The Mariners are playing just about right now. They're making a drive for a playoff spot, 1 out of the wild card. The Sounders, MLS, they played earlier today and won. UW football. So there's a lot going on, a lot of people out on the highways, and you're going to have rain at some point. 3rd down and 8 for Caressa and the Vikings of Portland State, right on the midfield stripe. Caressa down the middle again. Spethia to the 22, ball knocked loose. Bararia scooped it up, nobody else around. 2nd fumble recovery of the year by Keyshawn Bararia. Had one against Rutgers.
This is all Ezekiel Turner. You'll see it right down here. He's going to get beat. After he gets beat by the tight end, Maximo Spethia. Watch him get back up. You see him just keep chasing, boom, pops the ball out. That's incredible job of taking heed of the coach. And yep, you got beat, but this young man kept fighting, kept battling, retraces, causes the fumble, recovered by Bararia. That is this defense. It's a relentless approach. Okay, something bad happens, move on, make it up the next play, forget about it. This guy actually made up for it on the same exact play and caused a turnover.
Spethia had no idea that Turner was there because he'd already beaten Turner and left him in the rearview mirror, but he caught up to the play and changed it. Portland State trying to get on the board late in the half, and a big gainer turns into a turnover. Levon Coleman getting some touches in the backfield. Stick around for the State Farm halftime report. Mike Yam, Lincoln Kennedy, Nigel Burton back in the Pac-12 Network studios. You think Lincoln and Nigel have something to say about Husky Stadium? These guys were holding court up here for many years. Get you caught up on Stanford and SC. Clock running under 20 seconds now. Coleman again.
A nice half by UW, but there's some stuff that they need to clean up. The previous drive, when they're trying to create their tempo, this is an area they got to work on still. Their offensive line still got a couple things they're going to figure out. I'm sure that Chris Peterson's going to address those at half, but overall, a nice job jumping out, a great job on special teams, and the little things by UW. It's been impressive.
There's your first half standouts, 8 for 15 for the sophomore quarterback, 3 touchdowns. Chico McClatcher scored on that opening drive. Let's get down to Cindy with the coach.
Coach, the run game was able to muster 5.7 yards a carry. What would you like to tweak at half in the run game?
Well, we'd like to not turn the ball over. We'll keep running it and see what happens.
All right. What about Jake Browning? Very successful through the air, some beautiful fade passes. Assess his first half.
Not bad. We can protect him. He'll throw some good balls.
All right. Thanks so much, Coach.
Chris Peterson, an economy of words. He's been mild with his praise of Jake Browning. I don't think he wants him to get too big too early. He's only a sophomore. It's the 3rd week. Halftime in Seattle. Washington leads Portland State 28-0. Go back to Mike Hamm in the Pac-12 Network studios. State Farm halftime report. And it's surprising that Kraft hasn't touched it because he's actually their backup quarterback as well. He's a guy who stays on the field an awful lot, and a Washington guy as well from Linden. Portland State did have 6 first downs in the first half. Keep it on the ground. Zach Floyd. Maybe back to the line of scrimmage. That's all. Great gains.
Jim, I think you're right. For Portland State to get in this game, they got to take some shots down the field. They're in man-to-man coverage. Now, against this secondary and this defensive backfield of UW, it's not necessarily advantage Portland State, but they found some creases in the first half. If I'm them, I'm taking a few shots down the field.
You talk about opening it up. Caressa puts 5 guys in the pattern, empty backfield. Washington had time to adjust here. Run a little cross up front, but they protect Caressa. Rolls to his right, throws back. Got him in right near the first down marker. Chris Cisse. Remember that Cindy Brunson talked about Chris Cisse, the transfer from Oregon.
They do a nice job here in coverage, UW. There's really nowhere for Caressa to go to. Cisse just keeps working back, and then the Cardinals send by the quarterback, throws across his body, but finds their best athlete. And I think he's trying to look after Espethia. He's kind of crossing that field. You look for big 88, look for number 9. Those are the 2 most dynamic athletes right now for Portland State.
Cisse played in the Rose Bowl in 2014 for Oregon as a defensive back, and he also played the national championship game against Ohio State. Stood up and driven back. Is that Gaines again? Big Greg Gaines playing angry.
Greg Gaines, Sidney Jones, this defense they like to attack. They call themselves death row for a reason. They can just shut people down. You get the corner blitz from the boundary. Gaines gets it from up the middle. That type of penetration is going to thwart any offense.
Another young talent, sophomore from La Habra High School, the Highlanders down in Southern California. Just getting rolling here in the 3rd. Jake Browning has thrown 3 touchdown passes for Washington. Miles Gaskin scored on the ground. And now Bruce Barnum and the Vikings trying to answer back at all. Caressa, as a flag comes in, maybe they're going to call him down.
Well, he might have got a taste of the face mask there, but
Elijah Qualls, yeah. Did he get his mask?
The pass was legal. Number 29 was in the area. Personal foul, hands to the face. Defense number 5. The 15-yard penalty results in an automatic first down.
All right, so Joe Mathis gets called for the hands in the face. Right here, right in front of you. Got to keep your hands inside.
That's tough. I get it. There's a little contact with the face mask, but
I was waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, usually he got the front of that face mask, that chin area. Usually it's when the hands slide all the way up and you see the helmet move back.
Once again, Caressa has 5 receivers. It's a first down at the 33. Caressa has time, keeps his chin up, tucks it and slides inside the 30.
Cressey's going to give them a chance again in the Big Sky to do some damage. You know, he's an athletic quarterback. He sees the field really well, and he's got the ability to say, oh, nothing there, I'm going to tuck it and run, versus I'm always going to look to run. His eyes, you see his eyes are always downfield. That forces those linebackers not to commit to pursuing him on the tackle, and all of a sudden you get yourself into 2nd and 7, then hopefully 3rd and manageable.
Portland State's in the midst of a 3-game road trip at San Jose State last week, here at Washington, and they opened conference at Southern Utah. Southern Utah, the defending champion in the Big Sky. Caressa stays right tucked in that pocket and just missed his receiver wide. Ispithia.
Think about Caressa too. I mean, he's about 6 feet tall maybe. We had the chance to meet him yesterday. That D-line is just collapsing the pocket. He's just standing in there and kind of owning it. To do that, that is not something very easy, especially when you go into this type of environment. But he's a guy who's been that type of competitor his entire life.
You got guys like Vita Vea, Elijah Qualls, Greg Gaines. All those guys go 3 spins on the scale. And they're grunting and trying to get to you. And he stands right in there and tries to deliver that ball. It's a 3rd and 7. Ball's on the rug. Did he get back? Nate Tago dropped it, stepped over it, had to come back for it. And it looked like Cam Summers, the guy who comes up with it, a tight end for Portland State.
Look at this defense. You think it's man, then it's going to look like he's going to bring pressure, and all of a sudden the safety's going to drop. All these guys are moving around so much that it forces Alex Caressa to not really understand what's going on with the defensive coverage.
They'll go on 4th. Why not? Down 28-0. Portland State's not going to play on national TV too many times this year. Caressa goes to his first guy, first down. Ispithia has been